Have you thought about a career in the whiskey industry? I'm not talking about being the next master distiller, but if you want a leg up on the competition, you need to take a look at the Distilled Spirits Business Certificate from the University of Louisville. This 30-week program will prepare you for the business side of the spirits industry, like finance, marketing, and operations. This is 100% online, meaning you can access the classes at any time and anywhere. So what are you waiting for? Get signed up to make your next career move at business.louisville.edu/online spirits.
People will add their wives to the group and then immediately regret it because their wife's mad at them. They're always on their phone. Mm-hmm. Wife gets in there, sees how much they're spending on it. Then it's like, will you kick my wife out? And no, you got to figure that out on your own. I'm not getting in the mimiddle of that.
I think I might have added my wife to it because being part of the podcast now, I'm like, you got to have a pulse on what's happening so you know exactly.
Uninvite.
Yeah, no.
Hey, this is episode 212 of Bourbon Pursuit. I'm one of your hosts, Kenny, and as usual, a little bit of the news. On July 26, 2019, Beam Suntory broke ground on what is to become the Fred Minnick Craft Distillery. It's part of a $60 million investment in what will become known as the James B. Distilling Company, and that's going to be located in Claremont, Kentucky. Although the building itself will be fresh construction, the brands that are going to be produced at this new craft distillery are ones that we're already familiar with, like Booker's, Knob Creek, and Basil Hayden's, as well as new brands such as Little Book and Legend. It's named for the 7th generation master distiller, Fred Minnick, which has been on the show a few times before, and this new distillery will give Minnick and his son Freddie the opportunity to experiment with new fermentation and distillation techniques. The distillery has also announced that they will be updating the visitor experiences with behind-the-scene looks at their brands, a new tasting room, and much more. Heaven Hill has announced the 13th release of the Parker's Heritage Collection, and this will be a heavy char rye whiskey. While standard barrels at Heaven Hill are a char 3, the barrels the distillery used to age this rye are char 5. That means they're burned for 50 seconds longer than a typical char 3. The heavier char, the easier it is for the whiskey to penetrate the wooden staves and take on those heightened oak and spice flavors. This new rye is going to be 8 years old and 9 months in these, and was aged also in the 7th floor of Rickhouse Rye before being non-chill filtered and bottled at 105 proof. The Parker's Heritage Collection is named after Heaven Hill master distiller Parker Beam, who passed away in 2017 after being diagnosed with ALS back in 2010. Portions of the sale are donated to fund ALS research, and sales from the past 6 editions has raised over $1 million. The retail price set on this is going to be $150 MSRP. Ryan and myself are excited to announce that we are going to begin the process of opening up distribution of Pursuit series in 3 states. You can look forward to Georgia, Texas, and of course Kentucky as the first states that we will be hitting. The first barrel has been selected by Justin's House of Bourbon, with the second one quickly going into Liquor Barn. We're super excited to be able to bring our single barrel offerings at store selections at first. And you can look for more information on stores and the states on our website at pursuitspirits.com. Now, don't worry, if you aren't even in those states, or heck, even if you are, you can still purchase your bottles and have them shipped to your door through our online retailer at sealbox.com. You can go to pursuitspirits.com and click the Buy Now button, and you'll be redirected to their site for that particular single barrel. Right now, we only have about 20 bottles left in stock, but we're going to have a brand new September release, so get ready for it. Last week, CNN reported that Facebook and Instagram are shutting down all sales of alcohol, cigarettes, and other similar things like e-cigarettes. And this wasn't a joke. In the span of around 72 hours, half of the bourbon groups that I belong to were wiped out. Many of the larger secondary groups with 30 to 50,000 members were gone immediately. And over the next 24 hours, more disappeared. And even some groups that sold or raffled charitable causes for bottles were gone as well. We can't say for sure if this is the end of the Facebook secondary market, but it sure is a swift kick to it. Immediately following the demise of the large groups, many of the smaller ones with Less than 3,000 members changed their names. They also changed their rules. And while multitudes of even more smaller groups started to emerge, it's uncertain if we'll ever see a group with over 20,000 members ever again. And that's kind of why we decided to release this podcast. The secondary market, it's synonymous with Facebook. This can also be attributed to the growth of bourbon's popularity by those that are captivated at some of the values that some of these bottles drive. Owen Powell didn't create the first group to buy, sell, and trade bourbon, but he certainly created the largest. The bourbon secondary market group is no longer around, but the story of how it was built, the way discussions were moderated, and how it served as a data goldmine for valuations is a story that needs to be told. We uncover the progression of the group from 100 members to reaching over, almost at the time it was ceased to exist, was around 50,000. And really, we're also going to talk about what leads to certain distilleries also being banned on this black market, and if the secondary market will actually end if Facebook's cease to ever exist again. Now, you're done listening to me, so let's go ahead and listen to Joe over at Barrel Bourbon, and then you've got Fred Minnick with Above the Char.
Hey everyone, Joe here again. Our bourbons have won a few medals at some of the most prestigious spirits competitions out there. But don't take their word for it, find out for yourself. Use the store locator at barrelbourbon.com.
I'm Fred Minnick, and this is Above the Char. This past week, I posted a photo of the new Parker's Heritage release. It was like a lot of PR release images. It was shiny, it told you all about the new whiskey, and it came with a price tag, $149.99. It's a pretty drastic increase from past Parker's Heritage releases. Past releases were around $89 to $100. So you're looking at about a $50 to $60, dollar price increase depending on what market you live in. People on my Instagram went crazy. Well, I mean, maybe not crazy, but they were very upset with the price increase, and I had people writing me saying that this is soloing Parker's good name. As many people know, I was really quite close with Parker Beam before he passed away. And it got me to thinking about where we are in bourbon right now. There's actually price increases across the board, not just with these really nice bottles like Parker's Heritage and the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection, but you're seeing it like in everyday bourbons. I remember when I used to find Four Roses small batch for like $20. Now it's a $40 bottle. Now some of that is on the retailers for selling it to that price, but the fact is bourbons that are $40, $50, I used to pay $15 to $25 for them. That is where we are. But I've been curious as to how much that might actually impact the retention of consumers. So I did a little digging, and as it turns out, if you are running a business and you are selling a product, one of the best things you can do is increase your price. In fact, they say that people actually grow their profits and they also grow their consumer base. So according to this thing called the McKinsey report, it suggests that for basically like every 1% of increase in price can yield an 8% increase in profits. But these reports and all these people who are studying price increases also preach transparency. They say, tell your customer base why you are increasing the price. Did your costs go up? Did you have a bad loss in the previous quarter and you're trying to make up for it? Why are you increasing prices? If you don't start telling your consumers, especially the bourbon consumers who have been with you from the very beginning, why you're increasing your prices, you will start to see a massive boycott. I'm talking about the kind of boycott you find on social media that ends up trending, and people will no longer be buying your bottles. And that new consumer you think you might get because you're increasing the price and you're not coming off as cheap, well, that person's going to be Googling who you are when they're in the Total Wine or whatever liquor store. And when they Google you and they find out you've been increasing your prices 50, 60, 100%, they're going to walk away and they're going to go to something else. In today's day and age, you cannot increase a price almost 100% and get away with it. Consider this some free advice to bourbons everywhere. Keep your prices affordable so the everyday person can buy them. If you want to have really ultra expensive products, create a new product and brand it to be ultra expensive. But going from $89 to $150, it's just not good. It's a bad optic. So be thoughtful with your pricing and be transparent. You'll be rewarded by customers who love your product. And that's this week's Above the Char. Hey, did you know that I'm also curating Hometown Rising, a country music festival that's featuring Tim McGraw, Luke Bryan, Keith Urban, and Little Big Town? Go check it out at hometownrising.com. I'll be on the stage, and you can hit me up and have a drink with me. Until next week, cheers!
Welcome back to the new episode of Bourbon Pursuit, the official podcast of Bourbon. Kenny and Ryan here today talking about a subject that is very familiar to the bourbon culture and the whiskey geek culture, because if anybody is really getting to bourbon, you've probably gone down your aisles. You see a lot of the regular stuff that's out there. You start getting really influenced by all of it, and you want to learn more about it. Then you learn about, we've talked about our own journeys into this. You learn about limited releases and how hard it is to get your hands on limited releases. And when you get down to that path, everything all leads to one sort of end gate here, and that's the secondary market.
Yes.
No.
Well, you start out and you're like excited, you found a Weller or, Elijah Craig barrel proof, and then you're like, well, what else is there? And then you kind of get bored with the stuff that you can find. Then you're like, then people introduce, like you introduced me to the Facebook world, and like, I was like, oh my God, it's like a Pandora's box. And that's how I got introduced to Dusty's and all the limited editions. And it's like, it's the best thing that's ever happened.
Yeah,
and the worst thing.
It's the best and the worst thing, and we'll talk about, really our guest, because he's really the ones that has kind of spearheaded and really grown this movement. But, just on the topic of Dusty's, I remember getting into the secondary market, and this was like early 2014 timeframe when I was introduced to it. And this is before I think even this group was around, that became the largest one. You had all these secret code name groups that you got into. And I remember seeing Dusty's, and people were paying like $100 for some 1970s old Granddad.
I bought a '86 old Granddad for $75, like in 2015. I bought like 3 or 4 of them.
But I was looking at it back then. I was like, what moron is paying for some
you can get the
old
bottle
bourbon?
And there's a $9.99 sticker on it, and you're like, oh shit, I just paid 10 times that. But now it's like, why didn't I buy all of them?
Oh gosh, I'm sure we all have some of these stories. So let's go ahead and introduce our guest today. So our guest today is one of the founders of the largest secondary group that's out there on Facebook. So Owen Powell of Bourbon Secondary Market, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on and, really kind of giving us a behind-the-scenes look of what really happens here. And just to make sure that everybody's clear, like, Owen is not sitting here, like, advocating, but he does this. He kind of just operates a community, right? And that's really what it is. And it doesn't matter if it was him or anybody else. Like, this is going to thrive and exist no matter what.
Yeah, no matter the channel, no matter what.
Absolutely. So before we kind of dive into that, Owen, let's talk about kind of your past. Like, how did you get into bourbon? How did you kind of find your way into the scene?
I got into bourbon probably around 7th grade. Just kind of like parents' houses, or friends' houses.
I love it. Usually people say
best
like
friends
high
going
school, and you're like 7th
stealing
grade.
it out of the liquor cabinet, and us filling it back
Appreciate
up with
the
water.
candor.
Yeah.
But that was just, that's when I first got into it. And then there was a pretty good time that I quit drinking it just because I had a bad experience in high school and kind of just like, not doing that. So
it's usually when people have those start having the experiences.
And then I guess freshman year in college, I was working at Liquor Barn in Lexington, and I was like, I'm going to go out and try and get back into this, put it behind me. Got a bottle of Elijah Craig 18 for $50. I was like, I can't believe I'm spending this much, Went home, had a party. We mixed it with Coke, did shots of it. And it was, one of those 1981s that were really good that Corey Putnam just chugs all the time.
And you look back and you're thinking like, man, I wish I had that bottle to appreciate it a little more. Yeah.
You know, of course, everybody looks at it like a stock if they bought it when it first came out, you know, but it is what it is.
I'd only bought Apple when it first came out. You know?
Right?
Yeah.
$10 wouldn't, you know. But, so, and then I guess getting my education's in hospitality, and, you know, I was managing restaurants and hotels, and that kind of just, the whole food and beverage thing just led me into spirits, and naturally I just, I don't know, kind of evolved and got more
Naturally, you
into
just
it.
start a secondary group. You know?
Well, that came, I mean, we can get into that, and that was mostly because of back when we were talking about 2014, you heard of the groups. If you were in like Bourbon Info Exchange, people would talk about it, but you got to know somebody to get in. I didn't know anything, you know. So I was like, screw it. You know, I woke up at like 5 a.m, I was like, couldn't get back to sleep. I was like, I'm going to do it. Public. You know, all these secret groups, why not? Mm-hmm. And it blew up. And I immediately became the guru, and I didn't know it. People would send me, they just assumed because I created this group, I knew everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, you know, they send a picture of this to me. What is this? How much is it worth? I have no idea, you know, like, what is that? So all I do is Google, what is it? And I got self-educated on all the Dusties and
Fake it till you make it, you know.
I mean, I wanted to learn myself. I was intrigued by why are people paying, you know? So, and then it just kept getting bigger and bigger, and, you know.
Yeah, it didn't stop.
People rioted that I let it be not secret, or, you know, and not bringing it to the forefront. And I think it did a lot. I mean, I think it affected the industry a good bit.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that's what the secondary does. I mean, there's
brands that could like totally thank the secondary market for like.
Well, I mean, it helps them evaluate exactly what they have, and maybe they start realizing everything's undervalued. Like that's probably the biggest thing. I mean, it's had a huge impact on the bourbon culture.
Like, do you think like Old Scout and like Boone County would ever be a thing without a bourbon secondary market?
It'd be tough to say. It really would be. And it'd even be tougher to say that even would group picks or store picks even have a place to be that are, I guess you'd say, sought after.
Yeah.
Because if you see something and it's got a group name on it, you're like, oh, I immediately have that, or I've never seen it before. I remember for myself coming onto the secondary market for the first time, I remember seeing the Willett family estate bottles, just the regular ones, and this is right as when the foil tops started taking over, so there were still wax ones in circulation, and I'm like, I've never seen these bottles before. I've never literally seen them before, and so I'm sitting there, I'm always going around the stores trying to check them out, trying to find these 9, 10, 14 year Willett family estates. Ended up getting one in like northern Kentucky, I don't know, probably in late 2014, early 2015 from the Party Source. But I didn't know, like, the whole entire time I could have just been driving to Bardstown and pick them out of the Willing shop. I mean, the whole time I could have been doing that. And so it's an educational experience as well for people that come into it. And just another education experience, I remember everybody's got their Blanton story. Mm-hmm. You find Blantons, you start learning about it. You learn about the letters and the horses and the bottle shape, and you become intrigued with it. And then you learn out, like, oh my God, there's a barrel-proof version that you can't get in the United States? How do I get my hands on it? Like,
how do you get a whole barrel of it?
Exactly. I did something you did before. That's exactly like the curiosity that gets sparked out of a community like this. So kind of talk about the hyper growth of what it was, and were there any kind of growing pains along with it?
There weren't too many growing pains. It was just occasionally we get to a point where, like, I guess some admins are like, man, I'm having a baby now. I don't have time for this. It was kind of weird having admins leave because they really feel like they're giving notice at a job, and then, like
I need to spend my 2 weeks.
I had one of them like, man, I've been trying to tell you this for a month now. I'm like, dude, I don't care.
What kind of severance do you
Go,
offer?
yeah, like
I need an exit
broken
package.
up about it. But so yeah, only growing pains is as it got bigger, we just had to take on more admins.
So what year did you say you started? Sorry.
2014, 15.
And now how many members are roughly?
It's about 55,000.
55,000.
Pushing that last check, yeah.
Wow.
So
Do you have like a certain amount of admins per thousand? Do you have like a
ratio.
No, we
ratio?
have a certain amount of admins in time zones.
Okay.
We're
makes
mostly
sense.
looking for West Coast because, and then there's other things that we look for. What do they do during the day? Are you like a firefighter? Are you sitting in a firehouse for hours on end doing nothing but looking at Facebook? Or you're hired.
Or you're in
the
the tech industry?
Yeah. But so that's one of those are some of the things. And one of the things I told everybody, I was like, we don't want to hire anybody that actually comes to us and says they want to do it, because then, we actually did hire a guy and it, turned out wrong.
There's got to be some ulterior motive involved.
Yeah,
or something.
and we think there was, but and it's just kind of you really got to be level-headed, and most importantly, thick-skinned, because essentially you're a boss of. I don't know. I won't say it's a company, but you have to create these rules to keep the riffraff out, and then someone breaks one, and you're like, well, you broke the rules. Sorry, you got to go, bud. Mm-hmm. And they've been drinking all night, and they're pissed, and then they've got to create a spoof account of your own Facebook, or I had one admin leave because his kids were pictures of him and his kid were posted everywhere on their fake account. Just like really, sleazy stuff. But I don't care what people say. It doesn't bother me too much. Mm-hmm. I just set it aside and keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, I guess it is tough because you're dealing in a market where these aren't grandmas that are just knitting sweaters. Like these are for the most part a lot of grown men who drink whiskey, and
it's an online bar,
and they have opinions, and they're very strong about them too.
And they have a lot of liquid courage.
Yeah, they have that.
And when you're behind a screen and a keyboard, it amplifies that liquid courage because there's no repercussions really, except maybe a hate message back.
I've gotten into arguments online with people, and then met them in person here. One guy, his name, we'll call him Bo. And he came up here with Jamie from Lincoln Road, and I went to a bourbon tasting that night and hung out with him, and hi, I'm Owen, and I was like, oh hell, me and him really got into it, and we went out drinking. I was playing Jamie in ping pong. He was cheering me on. He was all on my side. About the third bar we get to, he's like, I go up to him. I was like, can we bury this online hatchet? And he's like, oh, we have a beef online. I was like, yeah. He's like, what's your last name? I'm like, Powell. Just started cussing. Oh, dang it. Jamie, did you know this is Owen Powell? Yeah, man.
The whole time.
He's like, God. He's a good guy. But so it's one of those things. It's like, oh, they hate you. But if you actually meet them in person, pretty much everybody's good people. But behind that keyboard, liquid courage.
Oh, yeah.
F you, you're the devil. You ruined bourbon.
Why do you think people do have that animosity? And I know that you end up having to not post under your own personal accounts anymore. You do it under a page account to try and kind of hide and make sure the admins aren't necessarily targeted anymore. So why is it that, at this point you are the godfather of the BSN page? I think it's everybody.
Sure, you love that title.
Everybody everybody kind of understands your name, and when they see it, like anytime it happens, there's the post flurry that happens. But there's also some people that hate you for no reason. Any idea?
I think it. No, not really. I kind of see it as I don't know, I guess kind of the culture that everybody's gone to. In the last 6 years of, they don't care what they've already made up their minds. they're going to judge you for whatever it is that they think is true, and if they're presented with facts about the actual situation, cognitive dissonance just goes in, and they don't, whatever. I could be Mother Teresa. F you ruined bourbon.
If Mother Teresa ran a Facebook
Well,
page.
and when you're separated by a screen and you're not looking and talking to each other, it really, because you take the human element out of it.
Exactly.
So you're like, you can't. If I'm sitting here yelling, I'm not going to yell at you if we're in person, but it might be a little easier
Well, maybe,
if I'm
we'll
like,
see.
Oh, I've never met you. I don't know you. I don't care what you think.
Exactly.
Here's my opinion.
Yep, for sure.
Send, or whatever.
So let's kind of talk about the rules a little bit, because the one thing about BSM is that you're in compared to other groups, like it's a lot of like no nonsense. Like, this is what you're here for. You're here to buy, bid, and that's it. Like, no talk, no discussion. So kind of talk about the rules that were in place and why they made it in place like that.
So the no discussions came up, and a lot of rules were just formed by someone sending me a PM saying, why don't you do this? And one of them was, I hate seeing discussions when I'm only here to buy or look for something in particular. And the group's gotten so big, just if you got rid of it, they can go somewhere else. And I was like, that's a great point. Bourbon or info exchange, go there and talk about it. Here, we're one thing. So that's how that happened. And a lot of the rules just were developed as we evolved, and just, people wanted it a certain way. It was mostly majority ruled on how things evolved, from other groups and stuff like that. But
And then you also have the secondary site that was doing kind of like raffles and all that sort of stuff. How did that sort of spin out and become its own separate thing?
Basically same thing. It's mucking up what a majority of people are there for. So it's like, we're just here for the bourbon. We want to buy it. That's what I want to do. I don't like gambling. I don't want to, it's mucking up my area. So, and the whole gambling thing aspect, that's like a whole nother of gray legal things that's going on. You're breaking, you're doing a couple things wrong there. And that was just to separate it, kind of.
Who was one of the first ones to do raffling?
Different department.
I can't remember. So there was somebody in the community, I know that ran a group for a while. He has since passed on.
Yes.
And there, don't name names, but just for the sake of it, I remember it was Red Balls or whatever.
Yeah, Red Balls
or something like that. I forget. But there was those days, and I don't know, like. I'll pass it to you guys. What would you rather do? Would you rather sit there and gamble on something or buy it outright if it's something you want?
Well, at first it was, I won my first 1 out of 3, so I was like, this is amazing. And then proceeded to lose 50x in a row, and so then I quickly realized that let's just not gamble and let's just take the money that you would gamble and buy what you actually want and get it. So I'd rather much buy it now than do the gambling.
I don't gamble at all with it. So I had no interest in it, and that helped separate it too. And mostly the group the raffle group ran itself, and then people started getting crazy. We'll do a bottle bust. We'll all put in a bottle, and then they're all gambling. So then someone owes someone a bottle. Then they gamble with that bottle before it's even been shipped, and then it's like a cluster of who owes what, where. It's just like so.
It's kind of like, I'm ready to double down.
I did never believe in those randomizers. I just still don't. I like the mega ball ones because it's like public knowledge.
Yeah.
What's the number?
More at stake on the accuracy of that.
So you were talking about just who has what bottle and whatnot. I know that there's always disputes. Kind of talk about what happens or how does a dispute come about sometimes.
A lot of times, the biggest
popcorn, right? Explain popcorn too for people that don't understand that one.
I always remember. Explain, because when I first started, I saw you see like conus and popcorn, and I'm like, what does all this mean? Go over the terms for the
popcorn. Just means at the end of 5 minutes to go in your auction that you've created, if someone bids in that last 5 minutes, it extends the auction another 5, and it just helps people are watching TV at home at 10 o'clock at night and they forget, oh, someone bid it, I can get in, and so it helped push it along and drive up the price, but
kind of stops a little bit of the eBay sniping kind of idea too.
Yeah, it does. If that happened, CONUS, just continental United States, easy way to say I'm paying for your shipping. I don't know where the list of all the acronyms that were created came from somewhere before BSM came around, and years before that. So those groups have been going around for.
Yeah, I love the ISOs and FTs and
GTSs and you got to learn everything. I think that's almost like a rite of passage when you're getting into the bourbon world. Is that if you go to somebody and you start talking all this vernacular and they don't understand it, you're like, welcome to the club.
I think I won like an auction and then I didn't realize what popcorn was, and somebody went, I was like, wait a minute, I won it at the time it went off, but I didn't understand the rules.
And it's kind of funny.
They're like, read rule 13.0, and I was like, oh, okay. This wasn't in your group, but it was another one.
I just discovered one last week. Some South Carolina guys came up, and they were calling Old Weller Antique OWA, and I'm like, I've only heard it OWA. I guess it's a, different. Louisville, I've always heard OWA, but apparently everywhere else they call it OWA, so I was like,
The vernacular, it changes, that's for sure.
Yep.
So kind of talk about what happens in a dispute like what Ryan said. If there is something that somebody bids, but then somebody says like, oh nope, it's over. Like when does an admin need to get involved in a situation?
Well, we wrote the rules so hopefully that they don't have to get an admin involved, people will show the rules. You didn't win it because here's the rule. It says, after 5 minutes, it's over of no bidding. So, you can check the timestamp of someone posting in that and determine if you actually did bid in time or not. So, things like that. And if there are disputes, it might be, well, the package says delivered, but it's not on my front porch. Where is it? Well, I know where it is. Someone stole it,
Who handles that part?
And you've even got the drivers might steal it. I've had that happen. I was waiting for a package and I was excited that it was coming and got a notification that it was delivered. And I'm like, no, it wasn't. I'm literally by the front door. Never showed up. So I'm bitter about that FedEx guy.
But is there a reason that admins have to step in a situation like that when a package is lost?
Because usually the guy that ships it, they're responsible until it says delivered, or if it breaks during shipping, the guy might open the package and it's all busted and he's like, hey, this is broken, or the seal broke and it's a collector's item and I want it in mint condition. They'll accuse, the seller might accuse them of tampering with it. They just want a free bottle out of me, or, they're lying. This is bull,
Who bears the liability in that?
The shipper. If it's broken, and usually it's, okay, you threw in, 3 pieces of newspaper as packing material and it's broken.
Go
come
figure.
On. Yeah. And a lot of the packaging suggestions that I gave actually came. I used to work in a UPS hub one summer in Lexington, and I literally saw packages falling 30 feet to a concrete floor off these conveyor belts that get jammed up, and packages start overflowing and just fall and just crashing down. So I was like, immediately knew, okay, I know how to package a bottle from now on. You can't overpack it. You really should. Things like that happen all the time. So it just.
I prefer the air bottle packs.
The air, or what are they? Wine bottle shipper things.
Yeah.
I thought those were cool until someone showed me a bottle that it kind of gives a false sense of security that thing, and they don't throw anything else in there.
I'll put one of those in, and then I put the popcorn around it, or not popcorn, whatever, the
styrofoam peanuts.
Yeah, styrofoam peanuts. Yeah.
So in that situation, it's up to the buyer to try to make it right in a situation like that. Now, we've also seen it in some of these.
How do you make it right, though? Like,
it's either refund or
you get it. So if it's broken, it's refund the money. If the tack strip's broken, well, it's kind of like you ask the buyer, did you buy it to drink it or did you buy it to throw it on your massive wall collection? Yeah. And whatever they answer is usually, okay, well then, will you take $50 for the, crack seal?
Right.
Or something, because you're going to
So
drink
it's up
it.
to
So
them to figure out the common ground or whatever.
we direct them to figure it out themselves.
You're not like the Better Business Bureau where they're like, I have a dispute and so you don't have to resolve them for them.
That's what I was kind of think they're like a mediation court, if you will. Like they're going, like husband and wife are going through a divorce. Let's get them together in a room real quick. Let's see if we can work this out. Before
I've had that quite a bit actually. People add their wives to the group and then immediately regret it because their wife's mad at them. They're always on their phone. Wife gets in there, sees how much they're spending on it. Then it's like, will you kick my wife out? And no, you got to figure that out on your own. I'm not getting in the middle of that. And then divorces have come up. And,
no way.
Oh yeah, like those wives know how much that collection's worth. You're getting in a divorce for whatever you did wrong or whatever happened. That's needs to be split up. So then they want me to kick their wives out so they can't let them know what they're selling or, just like crazy. It's like, sorry. But sorry about your luck. You dug your hole, That's not my problem.
Well, I didn't know that. Well,
there's a lot of, that's some of the.
Now that I think about it, I think I might have added my wife to it because being part of the podcast now, I'm like, you got to have a pulse on what's happening so you know exactly.
Uninvite.
Yeah, no. Let's take it off air.
Lauren.
Can you kick her out? No.
I forgot she had these.
So I guess another thing is, there's another thing that always happens in these groups that people call out other people. They'll say, they'll tag and say like, Jimmy Joe, he's a shithead. He's a
no good payer.
Well, or that, or like I bought something and then it's been 2 weeks and he hasn't shipped it out and he's not responding back to messages. Like, is that the right thing to do, or is it like?
That's the worst thing to do. Mm-hmm. If there's something going on, sometimes there's something actually happens. I've been in the hospital. That happens. It happened to me once, and I had to take a picture of my armband and send it to a dude. I'll ship your bottle out. It's just going to be a little while. I don't know when. Mm-hmm. But usually someone's, if they might be scamming them or something like that, calling them out is the worst thing. It'll just piss them off, and if they have a conscience and they messed up and they were actually having intention to get you back, or refund you or something, calling them out just ruins your chances. The best thing is to contact the admin and say, hey, this is what's going on, and then we can reach out and I'll just send a message, hey, you owe this bottle, what's going on? No accusations. I want to hear your side, because a lot of times it's not their fault or something, whatever. So, you do have to be diplomatic and not assume whatever you're being told is the whole story and go to the other side. And most of the time it works out fine and they solve the problem. Occasionally someone just, turned into a drug addict and is stealing or, ripping people off. But we've done a good job of like letting people into the group. It tells you, like when someone tries to join the group, it tells you how pretty much everything, where they live, are they a member of any other groups that you're a member of, are they friends with anybody, when did they create the Facebook page, and just all kinds of things. So if you're just created this in the last year, you're not getting in, and if you've created the Facebook in the last 2 years, why did you just create a Facebook? And all right, in the last 2 years, come on, it's been around for a while. I know
you're in your mid-30s. You should know how to use
yeah, exactly.
Facebook,
So we will have them prove their identity sometimes if their account's really, just send us a picture of your photo ID, block out all your pertinent information. We just need to see you're actually who you are. Somebody that you're not afraid to. And now these days, if you have that information, just like a name and a city, you can find them. You find their address, every relative for free. No, not some search site.
Whitepages.com.
Yeah, it's all out there. So it's like
LinkedIn, where they work.
So have you ever had accusations of counterfeits or frauds?
Hey, it's Kenny here, and I want to tell you about the Commonwealth's premier Bourbon Tasting and Awards Festival. It will be happening on August 24th in Frankfort, Kentucky. It's called Bourbon on the Banks. You get to enjoy bourbon, beer, and wine from regional and national distilleries while you stroll the banks along the scenic Kentucky River. There's also going to be food vendors from regional award-winning chefs. Plus, you get to meet the master distillers and brand ambassadors you've heard on the show. But the kicker is, Bourbon Pursuit, we're going to be there in our very own booth as well. Your $65 ticket includes everything, all food and beverage on Saturday, plus you can come on Friday for the free Bourbon Street on Broadway event. Don't wait, go and buy your tickets now at bourbononthebanks.org. There are more craft distilleries popping up around the country now more than ever before. So how do you find out the best stories and the best flavors? Rack House Whiskey Club is a Whiskey of the Month club, and they're on a mission to uncover the best flavors and stories that craft distilleries across the U.S. have to offer. Along with 2 bottles of hard-to-find whiskey, Rack House's boxes are full of cool merchandise that they ship out every 2 months to members in 40 states. In Rack House's June box, they're featuring a distillery that claims to be the first distillery to stout a whiskey. Rack House Whiskey Club is shipping out 2 bottles from there, including its Beer Barrel Bourbon and Beer Barrel Rye, both of which were finished in barrels that were once used to mature America's #1 selling bourbon barrel-aged stout. And if you're a beer guy like me, you would know that's New Holland's Dragon Milk. Go to rackhousewhiskeyclub.com to check it out and try a bottle of Beer Barrel Bourbon and Beer Barrel Rye. Use code PURSUIT for $25 off your first box.
So, have you ever had accusations of counterfeits or frauds in the BSN?
Selling in the group? Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's been that. And there's been people that have done it that we just thought. I went to this guy's house and got a bottle off of him. I bought a single oak project for $60 or something. And he was living in a $400,000 house, which in Louisville is a pretty good sized house, 3,000 square feet or so, maybe bigger. In a nice part of town, comes from a wealthy family, well-known family, and you just wouldn't think he would be doing that. But who knows what motivates people to commit fraud?
And so in a situation like that where people have been wronged for, say, like buying a counterfeit on the page, is there any, like, how does it go about to try and make people whole or anything like that, or it's kind of like, sorry man, like this is a black market, you get what you get?
Immediate action from an admin is, if that accusation is made, we immediately ban you or stop you from being able to, because we don't want you to keep, until we find out what's really going on. And there's been times where, I bought that, I sold him that bottle. I got it from this guy who's also in the group in this transaction, and you can see me buying that and then it's like these bottles have been passed around for 10 people in the same group in 3 months.
That's what I always say about the secondary. It's like it all just stays in the group. Like it's like we're all transferring and bartering the same bottles. Like it's funny how they pass around it.
So there's some guys out there that do incredible work chasing these people down and finding out where the counterfeits are coming and how they're happening, and
they're those firefighters that are sitting on Facebook every day.
Oh, well, I mean, it's just good that there's people like that they find enjoyment out of doing it, right?
Yeah.
And they either they find enjoyment, or it's maybe they're doing it to protect their own ass because they do have a very large stake in bourbon, and they've got to make sure that what they have is still keeping its value as it goes. So 2 sides of that coin. Now, there's also times that we had just talked about that people finagle people out of money. Somebody says, buy it now. You say, sure, sounds good. Take your PayPal. Facebook account deleted. I've got my money and run. What do you do to help, or is there a way to help those buyers to either become whole, or is it kind of like, man, that's it. Sorry.
Take it over with PayPal.
Is there a BSM community pool where people are refunded? Like,
no, I mean it's an enter at your own risk type of thing. There's not really a safeguard to protect you, and we try to prevent as much as we can by screening the people that come in there. But there's an inherent risk you have to assume when you go into it.
Yeah.
Especially what's your legal recourse at that point too? Well, you're gonna it's kind of like dealing with wise guys.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do about it?
yeah.
And that's when you got to kind of look at the history of those people.
Right, and that's where the whole vouching for
what
people.
they're bidding. Yeah.
I need a reference check on this dude. That
Yeah.
that helps a lot.
And speaking of something like that, I just kind of thought of this too. When you started this group, you also started it in a way that was a lot different than others. Some other ones, like the old days that's not around, which was BX, people would go in there and they would post bottles, and it wouldn't be transparent. It would say like, you want to sip or you want to taste, and that means it's for sale or if it's for trade. And you'd post in the comments or whatever it is, and everything would happen through PMs, right? When you built this site, it was almost completely opposite. It's like full transparency, open market sort of thing. What was the idea of doing that versus kind of like keeping it behind these sort of like secret code words?
Well, one, I didn't know about the code words because I wasn't able to get into those groups, and that's the whole reason it was created. And the whole transparency thing, I was like, after I started it and it was starting to take off, I was like, well, what is Facebook's policy on this? So I found it, and it literally said, you must be at least 18 years old to buy alcohol sell alcohol and buy it on Facebook. And I'm just kind of scratching my head. Okay.
Oh.
Maybe they're just seeing it as an international company, and well, we're not really into. And then it changed to 21. Then they said, okay, now you can't do it on Marketplace, and now it's at all. So we'll see what happens. And I think a lot of that most recent change is probably has to do with the legal trouble Facebook and Zuckerberg are in with the Justice Department, and his emails were leaked, and he might be in a lot of trouble. So I think Facebook legal team is just like, okay, no more chicken groups and gun groups, like whatever, all these crazy little.
Wait, there's chicken groups?
There's I just found out.
For like cockfighting and stuff?
No,
Or
like,
for
what are they, like, not heirloom, but crazy breeds of chickens that like rednecks are collecting. That happens apparently.
Really?
But they don't let pets.
There's a market
and
for
stuff like
everything.
that.
That's what I was going to say. I was like, I remember looking
Chicken
at like
secondary market.
like a Facebook ad that said like, find your people. Like there's groups for everybody, and I did not know there was a chicken
Yeah.
group.
Yeah. So, and I just heard about that because when groups get shut down, there really is a history, like what Facebook normally does, and they take out the big one and then they let it, because all these groups, all these little small groups, all those people are usually in the biggest group. So take out the biggest group and everyone will find out, and maybe they'll go away or whatever.
Something.
Deter them.
Yeah. No, I got
Let it roll downhill.
I mean, and this also, like, I know there was a huge opioid crisis that was happening through Facebook as well. I mean, there was people buy, sell, trade, illegal drugs and stuff through there. I mean, those groups go fast, but that's sort of the way that the world works, I guess. And then so another way that this was a lot different from other groups as well. So there was another group it's still out there today, so I'm not going to put a name to it, but they always wanted to try to keep a record of transactions and sales, and it was all done online, and that's kind of what also fueled bottlebluebook.com and everything like that. So kind of talk about why you said I'm not gonna, we'll just like, if you want to know something, just search it, right? Instead of having to own a catalog or an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, one, I don't want to maintain it.
Sounds
Sounds like a pain in the ass.
I mean,
It doesn't pay anything to sit here and play around on it. But,
but the other thing is that also, that data was also used in research studies to actually see how the prices of bourbon had been affected from years of just actually having a particular bottle, and seeing how it valuated over years, seeing how different types of bottles changed in value over years too.
Yeah, what was it, like the average rate of return was like 200% in like just a 2-year span?
Something like that.
Yeah, it was crazy.
So maintenance sucks. That's true.
Yeah, I just didn't want to spend time doing it. But and I felt like Bottle Blue Book does a fairly good job of, I haven't been on there in years, but just because the history in my group got so big, I didn't need to, and it was probably more current.
Yeah, because you can search any thing, right, through the group.
Yeah.
If you can just
keywords.
find the search button and know your
Right,
keywords,
exactly.
and know how to filter. I mean, yeah, you can find pretty much anything. But yeah, I don't know really who's running Bottle Blue, but so if somebody's like, oh shit, there's another transaction on BSM, I need to go and enter this into the ticket
Well,
system.
that's like I'm always wondering, like Wikipedia, like it's crowdfunding. I'm like, who the hell takes their time to fill out a Wikipedia page? You know,
I'm
like,
sure there's a lot of people out there. I mean, if you have
passion towards that topic.
Exactly.
well, I
yeah.
mean, I guess, yeah.
And it also has, with Wikipedia, you get, I mean, it's like a credibility and a point system. Like it says, like Ryan Cecil did this, right?
Okay.
So you get a little badge or a star on your shoulder, I guess you could say, if you want to do that.
The one thing I wanted to bring up, and Wild Turkey is a good example, how the market like we hinted at it, but how the secondary market helps companies see where their brand's going. I was doing a barrel pick at Wild Turkey several years ago, and I was talking to Eddie about the secondary market. And he was like, yeah, I'm in that group. I love watching those bottles and what they sell for. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah. And I got to thinking, I was like, your name's not in my group. So he's under some, I don't know what he's under, but, and then I got to thinking about Wild Turkey and their high-end premium brands that they release. They're out on the shelf at $3.50, and they might sit there for up to a year, but it'll finally all sell. I feel like they see these brands nudging up and know, okay, if we put it out here, we'll be able to maximize our profits, and it's just smart business, in my opinion. But
it is a way that companies can't gauge of what's happening.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
totally took off the secondary market to raise prices.
Well,
Heaven Hill's doing it.
Everybody's doing it. They see the
But
value.
Willis was the first ones that were like, all right,
we don't need
missing out.
distribution.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the other thing is when you look at just what these Facebook groups are able to do in general, is it not only just helps with value, but also helps with prediction of the changing consumer. Like, what do all these people, what are they gravitating towards? I'm sure you could look at the stats that happens when you sell a pallet to a distributor, and that distributor gets it out to the stores. But it's kind of hard to kind of track that data, and you kind of hard to see like what people are saying about it. However, you go to an online forum and you see some kind of like, let's take like Bell Mead honey, for example. Like, I saw honey and I was kind of like, whatever, honey.
Yeah, I thought it was like a flavored whiskey.
and then all of a sudden, and Nashville's a whole other thing. You got this whole group in Nashville that seems to kind of create this other little tornado of I don't know what you would call it, but somehow they're able to hype a lot of stuff up. And now Bell Mead honey trades for like $400 or $500, and I'm like, how's this even possible? Because I wouldn't have find myself like particularly interested in it. But if you look at what the market does and what it's valued at, they're probably like, oh shit, we better add some more honey to these barrels. I don't really know if like that's a process, but it's a way that they can see, they can gauge exactly what consumers are gravitating towards. So
yeah, for sure.
Another way to look at it. So there's another kind of way to, if we look at the group that you had built as well, there's particularly one, maybe there's a few others of distilleries that you've banned from being inside the group, as well as like these bottles are not allowed to be traded. We don't need to give them a platform and say like, let's talk about who that is, but is there a reason why that you would go through and say, I think we need to put our foot down and we shouldn't have these type of bottles be on here or on my market?
Yeah, so one, we're a bourbon secondary market, so we keep it at just whiskey. I guess one that everybody knows and is thinking about, I was getting really pissed off at all the people that were thread shooting on every time one of these bottles came up. It was like, I didn't even know what they were fighting over. I just got tired of hearing about it. And then I heard there might be market manipulation, and I was just like, screw it, banned. And then I heard about all these things coming out about someone going in and doing a barrel pick with a secret camera and trash cans and whatever. And I was like, I didn't know that. And then, of course, everybody assumed I was...
That you were on the inside.
I was like, I didn't know. I was just tired of having to admin my own group, like shutting people up and people getting fights and yelling, and you just like, we're not here for that, So it's just like, just ban it, get rid of it. And then it I don't know, it took off, and people
Like,
got
what's your
angry.
motive?
And then,
Yeah, I don't-
then the gifts come out, right? There's always the gift stream of different
yes.
things. But don't get me wrong, there's a lot of funny pictures.
Oh,
of
yeah.
many gifts that come out.
People are very creative. I enjoy it quite much. If you can just like,
Had some good laughs on there.
oh yeah,
So the other thing is, if we look at the time that's invested into this, time is very valuable. Time is very valuable to all of us.
all we're equal at. You know,
And
we all
it's-
have equal time.
And for I think a lot of people out there, they take it for granted, the amount of time that you've probably invested into this group over 5 years now. And last time I checked, you weren't collecting a paycheck from it, were you?
Nope.
So what's the motivation behind going through it and continuing to do this without seeing any kind of upside per se?
One, it's a passionate hobby of mine and every other admin in there. There are some incentive or benefits to it, like someone comes to town, they know who you are, they know you live here, they want to hang out and share samples with you, or bring you some samples, or mail you samples. Get that all the time. You know, we don't pay for it. It's that nice and fun, but I mean, there's no. It's really kind of easy, and especially if you're like working a job. So I used to manage a liquor store, and a lot of the time I'd be it's just sitting there and doing nothing. I mean, the shelves are stocked. Okay, we're good. Mm-hmm. Now you're just waiting for customers, and it was a slower store, so get out your phone.
A lot of time.
Got a lot of time here, you know. So I mean, what else am I gonna do? You know, just watch cat videos, or I mean, that's still fun, but I'm more interested in bourbon.
Mm-hmm.
You're more interested in getting yelled at.
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Antagonize people on the internet.
Yeah, start fights for out of nothing. It's out of bourbon, out of all things. Which is funny. Isn't it amazing, like, how people get in arguments over bourbon? Like, there's just so much, like, people get in a heated debate, whether it's about a particular bottle or whether somebody prices something. That's actually a good question. What do you do in a situation where somebody accidentally prices something? We've seen it both ways. They'll say,
Where it's way too low.
I've got this Pappy 15. I'm gonna put it for sale for $2,500, and then the laugh emojis start coming. Like every second starts coming. What do you do in that sort of situation?
There's kind of a range of, all right, I'm just going to delete your post because you're an idiot, or you're just going to piss off everybody. You know, $2,500 for whatever the bottle goes for now. You know, if it's $1,000 too much, you're probably going to get deleted because I know it's going to. But if you know, I've seen the opposite where Pappy 23, 170, someone. You know, 10 people, Ben, you know, and then they want to stick it to them for the rules. The rules
they accidentally left off a zero.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it was clear that you were not trying to short yourself that much money, you know.
Yeah.
So
I was selling it below the cost of even retail.
yeah, it's like, no, I'm not being that nice of a guy, and you're being an asshole. So it's like, no, you're not getting your free bottle of Pappy, basically. So, but yeah, I mean, so and if it's too much. I mean, I've seen it where it's like $100 too much, and they're still losing it. And then we do actually kind of manage it and just mute everybody. All right, you said something, you know, you thread shitted, mute. You're you know, digital duct tape for 3 days or something.
Yeah.
Go send time out.
Is there actually like a thing where you're because I've never actually admin a group before. Is there really like a button that you can say like you're cut for 3 days or something?
Yeah, you're muted for it's like 3 options.
No way. That's
1 day,
awesome.
3 days, 7 days.
Really? Okay.
And depending on how I feel that day, a lot of time now it's just progressively gotten worse. 7 days. 7 days.
Max punishment.
7 days. All right, you didn't break like Facebook rules, so you're not out of the group. But come on, shut up.
And then there's the other side of this where there's somebody that posts like a Michter's 20 for, we'll say like $1,000, right? When that's easily an $1,800 bottle or $2,000 or something like that. So what happens if they accidentally undervalue it and
it's not an obscene.
And it's not an obscene value? Like they literally
just didn't know.
They
just didn't know.
They didn't do their research.
We owed it to them, and usually when they realize, like someone tells them, you just lost $800, you could have had $1,800 or something, whatever. they'll just disappear from the group by themselves, and I can't.
At that
Sorry,
point,
dude. We almost had him, but
at that point, it's like no harm, no foul. Like you're fast to the trigger on their keyboard, but that's about all we can give you right now.
yeah, exactly. I mean, and sometimes people hold up themselves to the, all right, I'll honor it. And damn it, I don't want to, but sometimes they swallow their pride.
Yeah. Hopefully that somebody like returns something in their favor too, or if they crack it open, send them a sample or something like that. That'd be all. At least, which is
bourbon karma.
It is a true thing. I mean, there is bourbon karma out there. There's people talk about it all the time. You help somebody find a bottle, you ship somebody something, you send them somebody a sample. Hopefully the karma gods smile down on you, and you go walk into middle of nowhere Oklahoma and you stumble upon an old dusty turkey or something. It's a true thing. Now, there was also, I think it was maybe a few years back, it was around Christmas time. And did the community come together and like buy the admins some Van Winkle or something like that? Do I remember that?
Yeah, so that wasn't actually in my group.
Oh,
no, it's fine. So everybody
story,
wanted
Kenny.
to pat this.
Didn't involve
Everybody
me.
wanted to pat Dave on the back for being a great admin, and he got a bottle of Pappy 20, and I didn't know about it. And someone saw that and was like, we should do it for Owen. I'm like, no, just donate $20 to charity or something. Don't send me a bottle. That's not what I'm.
Quit bothering me.
I'm done here.
I'm not trying to, I don't need a handout. Not that it was that. I mean, but
And so,
after the fact,
absolutely. And then so kind of going back and looking at this whole thing of, and time is very valuable for a lot of people as you start going down this path. And everybody's got careers outside of just bourbon, at least hopefully mostly.
Unless you're Fred.
I meant outside of like flipping bourbon.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So everybody's hopefully has some career, and flipping bourbon just isn't it. But that's kind of go back where time is valuable, and you look at it and you say, like, I built up a network of 50,000 people. What if I was able to charge like $5 per person per year for dues, and that would go towards, I don't know what it would go towards. Like if it is to like actually help with the time value that's spent, or whether it goes into like an insurance bunker for bottles.
How many
that are
people do you think
broken
you
or
would
something.
lose instantly if
That's
you started
it.
charging?
it depends now.
And how many active out of the 50,000? Do you even know that, or?
I can probably see that data, but the thing is that setting could only work off of Facebook, and so when Facebook bans, kicks all of it off the Facebook, that might actually happen. Not necessarily through me. I don't want to do it anymore, but it might and it might be a good vessel. But the problem with that is everybody loves to get out their phone. Look, I don't want to say they love it, but they do it. They get out their phone, they start scrolling through Facebook. They see grandma, they see someone else's kids.
Oh, yeah.
They see bourbon.
Yes.
And usually my newsfeed,
That's the only
I don't
way
see any of it. I just see bourbon. And I'm sure a lot of y'all can.
That's the only reason I keep Facebook. Like, I loved it when
Yeah.
you could only have the group app, and you didn't have to have the Facebook app. You could just do groups,
okay.
and then they made everything go to the Facebook app, and it was like you could just totally keep your
That's
groups.
cool.
Yeah, it's
So getting people onto a whole nother website, it's going to be a challenge. And so setting that up, that's a lot of work. And you better have a really good reason for people to go there. Like how you got to make it worth their while to go there.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it is hard to try and monetize a platform
Yeah.
like this because
it's the path of least resistance, because people are already there.
And I think it's against Facebook rules to actually try that or do that.
Oh, well.
You can't export the group list like on a spreadsheet.
No, you can't.
Everyone move over.
Well, knowing that, then I guess that rules that out.
Yeah.
I was just trying to think of a way that you could try to make it worth the time that's actually invested. But it sounds like, because granted, this is by far the biggest group, but it is not the only group.
Right.
There's got to be upwards of hundreds now of not only just markets where you can buy, sell, trade, but there's local markets where you can buy, sell, trade. There's Louisville ones, there's Lexington ones, there's ones in Ohio and so forth. So I guess if you try to do that, like, people just go elsewhere. There's always somewhere else to go when you do that. So, I mean, the other thing we kind of look at is how these have grown. Is there going to be a way that one day that you're going to kind of see this as like, do you think one day it could all possibly end on Facebook? Or,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And quite honestly, I'll be honest, it's already, the market has gotten so big that it is going to go, quote, legal. Since DC can buy straight from collectors, like Jack Rose does, distributors can do it. New York, you can do it. This is going, it's like, how much money does a distributor need to take to do this all legally from, and if and when it gets all shut down on Facebook, that whole, it's coming. I could say that. I would think, because it's already evolving here in Kentucky with us being able to sell to liquor stores and bars, just straight up take this bottle right in and I want to sell you this. How much, So, I don't
know. I think there's always going to be a need for a peer-to-peer distribution system. I mean, if you even just think of like just clothes. If people sell clothes on Craigslist, they don't always want to go to a consignment shop or something like that, even though a consignment shop exists, but you're going to get more money for it if you put the time and the effort to go and like do a peer-to-peer.
Yeah, you're going to get taxed.
I don't want to say it's going away.
Or just cars. Or just cars in general. You want to sell a car, you can go and you can try to put it on your own marketplace versus just going to the dealership and saying, give me 40% less than its value, right?
Right.
Because that's typically what happens.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Because, I don't even know where I was going with it, but
Whiskey getting to you?
no, not yet. It was just I kind of blanked.
Yeah. Well, this was a really good conversation, and I think it was really a true testament to kind of see exactly the thought process behind it, really the growth, a bunch of the crap you have to deal with. Like I think that people need to give admins a break every once in a while. Like there's just so much stuff that probably happens behind closed doors that everybody just doesn't see.
Yeah.
I know you all probably have your own message threads of trying to figure out like, what do we do about this? And there's got to be an issue every single day.
Oh yeah.
Every single day.
There needs to be a National Admin Day, where you just support and thank your admins.
Exactly. Well, you do have like National Secretary Day. We can probably just combine them together.
I know.
Admin, whatever it is.
That's where I was going earlier.
There you go. And so we'll remember that for next year. But like I said, I think everybody kind of owes a lot of what you do as a great debt of gratitude because of not only just, as I mentioned, just the crap that goes on and having to monitor and manage it, but for the culture that it builds.
Yeah.
We had mentioned it. It really does. It sets the precedent for the market, and not just the secondary market, but the actual market.
Right.
And so it's huge.
Yeah, and it just, for me personally, it provides such enjoyment. Like, I can't tell me, like, time spent on Throne or just, laying around, scrolling through Bourbon Sigmar, just seeing what's going on, like seeing what's going on in the market, seeing the funny posts, the funny outrages,
I'm sure I've contributed
it's definitely
to a lot of that.
It's improved my quality of life, so thank you.
Well, you have that, and then you also see a few different things. Like I said, for your own personal education, you learn what bottles are out there.
Yep.
You learn who are the biggest ballers in the bourbon world too.
I wouldn't even know who Blonde Brothers was until
that too.
Good one.
But you mean when I say ballers, like you see people that post like epic bottles, and you're like, holy smokes! Or you see people that they'll post like 20 bottles in a lot, and they'll say like it's $10,000, and somebody's like, buy it now, and you're like, holy shit, that guy just spent $10,000. Like
you see like those Eagle Rare 17s, and there's like 38 people bid are like, whoa, I didn't think this existed.
Exactly. So it's definitely cool of not only that, and it's building community around it. So thank you so much for kind of coming on today and explaining that. But I also know and give you kind of an opportunity to talk about sort of the next venture that you're going on, if you want to kind of give people a kind of a heads up on that and what's coming.
Happy to do that. So being in this, doing all this, I've gotten to meet so many people in the industry, just liquor store owners, bar owners, just bar managers, bartenders, and it spawned out other businesses that I didn't see ever happening. And one of them is I've started my own brand, and I've sourced some barrels, going to be putting it out. Part of why I won't be, need to focus all on that is and not adminning, because I'm not sitting at home all day playing on my phone. That's coming out. I've got some samples here for you. I want you to try some. One of the things I'm doing is my first batch will be a single barrel proof. Then I'm going to have I say that's the mid tier. Then a small batch that hopefully I can get to the point where I'm buying tons of barrels and mass distributing that. And then there's one that I'm calling exceptional and rare. And through these people that I've met in the industry, it's surprise. Everybody's like, well, there's 23-year-old barrels out there, but you better be Pappy if you want them, or Evan Williams if you want them. But there's other, younger ones that are out there. They're just really hard to get, and you got to know the right people. And I think that hopefully I can get to them. I've got some samples that I might be able to get, so I want you to try them. But
we'll definitely do that after we wrap up here. But we want to say again, good luck on the next adventure. The time and effort that went into building and managing and monitoring this group, and then kind of shepherding it on to the next generation of admins. There was a lot of time that was invested to it. So I think everybody kind of owes you a debt of gratitude when it comes down to it.
You're welcome. I know there's people out there that don't agree with that.
Yeah. Well, of course, I'd always end with the show saying, if people want to learn more about you, where can they do it? But it's going to be on Facebook, wouldn't it?
Yes, go like Fern Creek Bourbon.
Yes.
There you go.
Like Fern Creek Bourbon. I love the label. It's awesome.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
I did not create it.
Yeah.
So make sure you go and you check that out, and make sure you follow Bourbon Pursuit on all the social medias, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you like what you hear, you want to be a part of our community where we don't buy, sell, trade. However, we talk about it. We get our own barrel picks. We've got cool swag. We do kinds of shit like there. But it's fun. Go check it out. Patreon.com/Bourbon Pursuit. Ryan, you want to kind of close it out there?
Yeah. Thanks, Owen, man. That was awesome. Appreciate the studio space. We got a legit studio here if you're watching on film. But super cool stuff. Like I said, I've wasted a lot of time on your site, so thank you for that form of entertainment.
And you're welcome. I think you're welcome to come back in our studio here and
awesome. We
record anytime, as long as I can. Come
as long as you keep bringing Wild Turkey 13.
Yeah, sure. All right.
We're in every time.
I'll get a whole case of it.
Yeah, but everyone listening, please let us know what you think. Give us feedback, show suggestions, comments. We love hearing from you all, because we do it for you. And so let us know how we're doing and how we can make the show better. And with that, we'll see you next time.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.